Donald Trump is doing better among the average union member. He's doing better among them than any Republican has done in decades. I've never had union people publicly say they don't speak for me.
So how's Donald Trump doing with some of the key demographics he's been trying to approach, especially with his J.D. Vance selection? You remember J.D. Vance was selected to shore up those voters in Western Pennsylvania, into central Michigan, maybe into Wisconsin. The whole idea is just one of those states needs to go Donald Trump's way if everything falls right. And he's the winner. He's president of the United States. So do we have any polling numbers to show how that pick has done? Specifically, we're talking about suburban, rural, blue collar, union members, laborers who bounce back and forth. I'll be honest. A lot of those voters voted for Obama. A lot of those voters voted for Trump. Then they got disaffected and they voted for Biden. Where are they now? Well, let's turn to a panel on CNN who had that exact conversation yesterday.
But I assure you that Donald Trump is doing better among the average union member, not teachers' unions and not the unions for government, but everybody else, the trades, the people who work with their hands. He's doing better among them than any Republican has done in decades. This is not going to be a problem for him. The union leadership is more divided from their membership, and the louder that it gets, the greater the divides are going to come. And in my focus groups, and this is remarkable to me, the union membership says they don't speak for me. And I've been doing this now since I hate to say this, 89, 1990. I've never had union people publicly say they don't speak for me.
All right. Now, listen, I get it. I'm not a huge fan of Frank Luntz, okay? He's been doing it since 1989. That was like 3 different wigs ago, I think. I know I shouldn't make fun of people's hair. I get criticized when I make fun of people's hair because my hair is its own unique thing, but I'm very public and open about it. Go to growyourhairback.com and you'll see before and after pictures of me. I admit my hair situation. This guy, I mean, come on. Anyway, Frank Luntz been doing it for 1989, and I'm not a huge fan of this guy. All right, I think he's a bit of a hack, but I think his focus groups are actually revealing, and I think that they do. Listen, politicians listen to this guy, and people in the media listen to this guy, and he does have influence. And I think when what he says makes sense, it resonates with me, and that makes sense. Not only does Trump do better with union workers across the board, real unions, not teachers' unions, not government employees, real union workers, but the fact that the tide has turned with regard to union membership, now finally defying their leadership, that the leadership has so exploited the goodwill of their members by taking their dues and spending it on political action that they don't approve of. At this point, the union membership literally feels like their leadership doesn't represent them in any way whatsoever when it comes to politics. Now, I know that you guys might be like, well, then why do they keep voting for their leadership? I'll tell you why. Because they don't see their union leadership as being the people who are to tell them how to vote politically. They see their union membership, their union leadership for one reason and one reason only, and that is to get them a better contract from management. So they'll go ahead and tolerate the, Marxist in charge of the UAW or the Teamsters if it means they get a better contract from the man, right? But they're not going to listen to them politically. They don't care. That's not what they're there for. And they're able to parse that. I know a lot of union members in my life, and that's what they do. It's like, yeah, they don't speak for me, but I don't care. I don't look at them for political advice. I look at them to get me a good contract every 4 years. And that's what they do. So they do. And that's how it is. Now, they should be angry that their dues are being used to help a politician that is antithetical to everything that they believe in their core. That's the next step. We'll get there. But the fact that Donald Trump is doing better with union workers right now than any other Republican candidate in the last 50 years is enormous for this election cycle. Not just for their votes, but also for their organizing. When Democrats do a get out the vote campaign, what that usually means is the union thugs drive up in a bus and they make sure all the members get on the bus and they take them to the polling place and they tell them how to vote. That's get out the vote. The unions bring so much money in organization to the table that the Democrats don't have to spend any money on, that it's incredibly valuable. The difference now is that they can't count on the membership to vote the way they're told to vote. And that's an important factor here when this is going to be, in fact, a very close election in those states where union members make a difference. I'll say them again. Western Pennsylvania, central and western Pennsylvania, central Michigan, and even outside of Detroit in southeastern Michigan and in Wisconsin. Those are the 3 states. And again, I want to reiterate, Tim Walz was supposed to make the difference there. And you just heard it right from Frank Luntz. But there's more. There's very, very good news here in terms of how Trump is doing much, much better than anyone anticipated with voting segments that Republicans hardly ever reach, and how Kamala Harris is doing quite poorly with those demographics. We're parsing it down for you, but you need to hear this so that you're not blackpilled on this election.
Latest reading I saw was almost 60% of Americans are invested in the market, whether it's a pension, a 401k, and yet the Democrat VP nominee, Tim Walz, has zero money in investments. What do you make of someone trying to run the country with zero investment acumen?
I didn't know anything about the VP candidate, Tim, and so I did some digging last week. I got the data last Friday. He is not a good manager. If you look at his stewardship of his state, Minnesota, it's been not good. And I'll tell you how I measure it. People say, oh, you're partisan. No, I'm not. I'm looking at the track record of an individual who came into a state and wiped out job creation. He wiped out job creation in professional, in manufacturing, in accounting, in every subcategory you look at. Those jobs moved to South Dakota and North Dakota. The South Dakota job rate right now is 4 times that of Minnesota. Minnesota only creates jobs in services that are funded by the government, healthcare and social services. Every other sector is in decline. He's also added a surcharge of 1%, 100 basis points, on top of 9.8% taxes on individuals that are retiring. And of course, they're leaving the state in droves. He's the best governor for Texas, for Florida, for North and South Dakota, but not for Minnesota.
And that's exactly right. That's where.
All right. Now that economic record right there, again, this was the guy who was supposed to shore up manufacturing workers, blue collar workers. And why? Because the Harris people are so shallow that they say, well, look at him. He carries a gun and he wears a flannel shirt. Well, there you go. And he lives out there in places where people have tractors. So there you go. Well, those people will like that. Okay. That'll look good on TikTok. And just FYI, all those rural people and manufacturing laborers and union workers, they're not on TikTok. That track record right there, spelled out for the American voter, is death for this ticket. He's not doing the one job that he had, which is to shore up those voters who care about their economic future and actually believe in the American dream when it comes to working with your hands, building a small business, working for a company, and getting a fair wage for a fair day's work. He doesn't represent them at all. In fact, he's killed all of those jobs in his state. But there's more. Even Nikki Haley is completely not. I mean, listen, she was already, she participated in the Republican convention, and she's obviously made some kind of amends in her own mind with Donald Trump as president. She knows that, between Biden and Trump, she was 100% on board. But now that it's Kamala Harris, Nikki Haley, forget about it. I mean, give her a MAGA hat at this point. Watch.
And when I look at the issues and I look at the differences between the 2 candidates we've been given, there's no question that I want to see Donald Trump win this election, because we can't have a Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I mean, all you have to do is look at what Kamala Harris has said. She doesn't think illegal immigrants are illegal. She thinks that we should give them free education, free place to live, free health care. Tim Walz thinks socialism is neighborly, and he's gone a step further and thinks we should give them free tuition. They want to raise taxes. You look at everything that's happened with our economy already. We can't afford that more than anything from a national security perspective. You can't go to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who have not had the foreign policy experience, and the experience they do have is that they want to expand the Iran deal and give more money to a terrorist organization that says death to America. There's a lot of differences there. We are where we are. And right now, for me, for my family, for those that I love, and as a voter, I think we need to hope that Donald Trump wins this election.
Yeah.
She's come a long way from the primary season, hasn't she? And you may be rolling your eyes, and I mean, Nikki Haley annoys the heck out of me. But let's just talk about the election. This is about politics, and it's about the election, and it's about the votes. All right. We got to be real here. There's a lot of people out there who are voting for Kamala Harris who probably would have voted for Nikki Haley. Now, there was no way Nikki Haley was going to get the nomination, but she appeals to them. And if she is deployed properly in this campaign through the right kind of media or maybe even public appearances to appeal to those voters, even if it makes it, you have no idea how close this election is going to be. It's going to be close, not because Donald Trump is in any way doing worse than he was before Joe Biden stepped away. If you look at the polls, he's basically where he was. In fact, he's doing better than he was against Biden. Now he's doing better against Harris. The difference is those voters who would not vote for Biden and who were planning on voting for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., they are now voting for Kamala Harris, or a good chunk of them. RFK's gone down to like 5 points now in the battleground states. That's the difference here. And what if they can deploy her to appeal to some of those voters? That's every little bit makes a difference in winning or losing in the critical states that need to be won or lost. Back to those voters that Tim Walz was brought in specifically to help and bolster the ticket for Kamala Harris. Fox Business went out and talked specifically to Minnesota voters affected by Tim Walz's policies over the last 5 years.
He is just about as far liberal as she is. And I think most of the people in Minnesota are happy about it because he might leave, or at least be gone for a period of time. So
we joke that we're mini California. He's put policies in place that have hurt small businesses. It's killing our small towns, our rural development.
Minneapolis was getting destroyed and burned to the ground. We thought, where's the leadership? And when we heard about him calling off the National Guard, we knew exactly what his plan was. It's to further the divide, to play, checkers with people's livelihoods like that and people's businesses and an entire populated city like Minneapolis. I mean, that's just evil.
Yeah, I cannot wait for the J.D. Vance debate. I cannot wait for the J.D. Vance debate with Tim Walz. I doubt Tim Walz will show up for it, to be honest with you. I don't think he will. I think he's a coward, and he knows how vulnerable he is. But I cannot wait for it. I cannot wait for the ads that they're going to be able to put together with real Minnesotans to tell you who Tim Walz is and what he's done to their lives in that state with his policies. And what you just heard there with mini California is incredibly important. They need to continue to label Kamala Harris as a San Francisco, California liberal. There is not one policy in the state of California that Kamala Harris has not endorsed and embraced and celebrated. Every single thing that they've done in California to ruin that beautiful state is something that she will try to bring national to Washington, D.C. And she's offset her ticket with someone who is basically a carbon copy of those policies. Tim Walz is, in fact, Gavin Newsom with a Midwestern haircut. And every single policy that he's implemented in Minnesota could have very well been passed in Sacramento. As much as we love Sacramento, it's a fine town. So that's where we are right now. And as you can see from real people speaking out about who Tim Walz is and what he's done, from analysis of his economic disaster in Minnesota, from focus groups who say that those Tim Walz voters are now more inclined to vote for Donald Trump, and in fact are supporting Donald Trump more than they ever have any other Republican, and they're going to defy their union leadership. Bing, bing, bing. Things are lining up right now. This campaign has not even begun, you guys. We don't even have the Democratic convention yet until next week. Stay the course, stay focused, recognize who the media is and what they're trying to do, and just stay locked in right here with us.